the last 2 decades, PSFK has been tracking the creator economy. I remember at our Singapore conference in 2008, we had folks like Jeff Staple, Mark Dytham come and talk about how they were using tools that were becoming available to create new ideas, new projects, and even new businesses. A few years later, 2017, we created a report that allowed us to study how social media influencers were using content tools to really engage audiences. And today, we have a new report that helps brands and retailers think about how to engage influencers and creators and use them as part of their channel strategy. I'm excited to go through the report today, and I'd love to introduce you to my colleague, Lauren Lyons, who's going to help take us through the content today.
Hey, Piers. Excited to be here. Can't wait to dive into all things influencers.
What are kind of the three big themes that kind of run through this report?
So, Piers, for this, we really focused our research around these three big topics, leading with authenticity and expertise as influence and trust. And here's where we're going to dive into that micro influencer, as well as how brands are turning to specialists and experts to partner with today. The second theme we're looking at is influencing within the digital world. And here we're looking at both digital personas, virtual avatars, as well as consumers acting as their own virtual ambassadors too. And then to round it out, our third section here is going to be around new business models for partnership and co-creation. And here we're looking at how platforms and tools are playing matchmaker between creators and brands for both of their benefits. And then also creator stewardship, where we're looking at how really that new creator economy is taking place and how creators are being supported in new ways there.
Well, I think that's a great framework to try to understand how to engage influencers today. We have less than 20 minutes in this session, so let's get on with it.
All right, awesome. So to kick us off here, we're looking at a strategy called influencing on a micro level. And so the definition of influence is changing. Quality engagement, true community, those are really eclipsing follower counts and likes today. And this is where we're seeing the entrance of the nano influencer, right? Or your everyday social media user with anywhere from 100 to 10,000 followers. And so as community stakeholders, these are niche tastemakers, these micro nano influencers are able to provide really their community with these curated recommendations, very specific to their own interests, their own hobbies, and their own style. And this is spanning verticals like fashion and beauty, but also things now like personal finance and career development as well. And so to reach consumers more impactfully, we're seeing how brands and retailers are adapting their own approach to influencer partnerships. And they're creating these training programs, compensation models, and building relationships really with a focus on more micro or nano influencers. And then to kind of bring this to life right now, we're looking at this great example from Nivea. And so this was an initiative to discover and empower emerging micro creators. And so the skin and body care brand launched this really educational marketing program called Nivea Soft Fresh Batch. And it's targeted towards up and coming nano micro influencers across India. And so the initiative, it targets college age women. It's helping them to kickstart their own role as a content creator. And they're offering them these very targeted classes, resources, and a 1-year brand marketing ambassadorship with Nivea. And so over the course of 2 months of launching this initiative, the brand received over 20,000 entries, and those were then narrowed down to 75 winners total. And so kind of just to build on this, we wanted to wrap this up with a few takeaways, right? So why micro-influencing and how to approach this? So one thing we're thinking about here is reconsidering your KPI and success metrics. What defines a modern creator, right? So the new influencer economy is, again, based on that engagement and community rather than numbers and likes. And this is creating, equal benefit for creators, consumers, and brands and retailers. We're also looking at how, building a network of niche creators, right? That curation of authority curation and authority really live within the niche. With micro or nano influencers, this idea of tailored and quality offerings really work best. And so moving ahead into our second trend within that authenticity and expertise as influence and trust section. So our second trend here is specialists as brand partners. And so to build both their brand and establish trust among their friends and customers, we're seeing how brands and retailers are combining social authority with commerce, and they're recruiting subject matter experts as their own brand ambassadors. And so as professionals, these are informed advocates. They're hugely influential. They're providing consumers with very verified recommendations and reviews that go beyond just a surface level understanding that a typical influencer might be able to provide. And instead, these experts serve as very educational resources. They're trusted guides, and they're certified community members within very specific areas of expertise. And having them work on behalf of their partnered brand and retailers can be extremely powerful. And so kind of bringing this to life today is this great experience or example from Unilever. And so they wanted to leverage skincare experts on TikTok to explain the benefits of a new skincare line this spring. And so they partnered with dermatologist Dr. Lindsay Zubritsky, who has about 500,000 TikTok followers, as well as the beauty influencer and skincare expert Amy Chang, who has 1.3 million on TikTok. So they were both a key part of promoting Unilever's new brand Fervor, which is exclusive to Target, and it harnesses fermented skincare for a variety of science-backed benefits. So both Zubritsky and Chang, thanks to their areas of expertise, were able to promote the brand among their trusted followers. And overall, just a quick ROI here. They were able to increase the brand's social reach by 15,000 followers in just 7 days, all while impacting those very scientific-based benefits around the product. And so kind of just to wrap up this trend, a few key takeaways here. When you're thinking about specialists as brand partners, embrace influencers in these non-direct categories. We talked about this a little bit earlier. There's definitely an opportunity to leverage influencers that are in more verticals beyond fashion, beauty, and travel. There's areas, for influencer marketing to open up around education, finance, sustainability, technology. A second thing here is really ensuring that trust is built between the creator and their audience. This especially is necessary when you're positioning a specialist as a brand partner. Content to commerce effectiveness depends on really high quality, trusted connections. And so final here is just, capturing the high engagement that can be created by a community of brand experts, right? So we're not thinking just about user generated content, but also the insights, product feedback, and product testing point of view on these very real world product experiences that these brand partner specialists can be a part of.
So maybe this is time to speak to Lauren Chesley. Lauren is retail head of industry at SXM Media. And Lauren has been looking at audio and working with brands to help them think about audio as an influencer strategy. Hi, Lauren. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Pierre. It's nice to be here.
That's great. So we've been talking about authenticity just now, and it seems to be as important or more important than ever, especially as consumers resonate with cool people doing cool things versus manufactured, replicable social content. And when it comes to audio, podcasts, how can these audio influencers help brands and retailers drive this authentic, impactful engagement?
Yeah, great question. So I think generally calling out that consumers are visually fatigued, that was something that we saw heighten in 2020, but it's definitely increasing. And so I just say, ears are bandwidth, right? So it's an opportunity to lean into where people are listening, and particularly voices from an audio standpoint are people that they love and they trust, and they can hear that intimacy that's in between the ears, and that's stoked by audio influencers. So podcasting, talk radio, et cetera, it's storytelling, and storytelling is word of mouth at scale. So if you think about marketing 101, I think that that's really a huge way, because that's the original format of trust, engagement, recommendations, and people wanting to lean into the things that their family, friends, people that they adore are investing in. And that's what I think you can hear in these stories that people are talking about. It's their life experiences, it's news, it's entertainment, it's expert information and more. And it's convenient, and people can access it wherever they are on the go. And you can hear authenticity, right, in somebody's voice, versus when you see something, you don't know if it's manufactured. It can feel like it's replicatable, and it can feel very different and forced, arguably, versus when you hear somebody's voice and the tonality and the storytelling, you definitely can get to that source of authentic stories and authentic engagements with brands. So that's where I see the power of audio influencers.
Well, audio seems to be a great platform for influencers. I mean, what are the opportunities there for brands and retailers to collaborate with creators?
There's so many. That's what's really cool right now. It's a burgeoning field, right? I think there's walk, crawl, run, in the sense of people can kind of enter in from the walk phase, and they can figure out like, hey, this is an opportunity to lean into an existing show and have just a host read, or they can go into the run phase where they're engaging with custom content. And so they're actually creating episodes and co-creating with a podcast host. And they're talking about, hey, this is the duality between what my brand has to offer and their brand has to offer. And you're talking about that content in an authentic way. And then when you're thinking about kind of the running the marathon piece, then you can get into, hey, this is actually, an endorsement, in the fact that this is something that's a longer term investment. People are coming back to that podcast kind of episode over episode. So there's a lot of ways that you can go from that initial phase of engaging into the more custom and more expansive ways of engaging through that relationship. And it's accessible on one platform too. I think the power specifically of SXM Media too is it's consumer first, in the sense of wherever you're getting that content, we want to be. So if it's listening on Apple, or if it's listening on Stitcher, or if it's listening even on Spotify, you have an opportunity to tune in where people are consuming. And so it gives that authentic kind of connection point too, from the consumer perspective, for engaging those voices wherever and however they want to. So it's a playground for brands, and we're excited about it.
Well, it seems like lots to do, but I appreciate you giving us that kind of framework to help us just think about how to channel our strategies, our kind of brand strategies and our influencer strategies. Lauren, thanks for joining us today for the brief time that we have. Lauren Chesley, Retail Head of Industry at SXM Media. Great to have you. Thank you.
Hi, Piers. Thank you so much.
Let's move on to this next section about influencing within the kind of the digital worlds, virtual worlds, metaverse.
Absolutely. So here, strategy we're calling partnering with digital personas. As the boundaries of who or what constitutes an influencer are further explored, accepted, brands are moving away from, just human opinion leaders and influencers in favor of these virtual influencers or digital personas. And as brands really look to engage consumers within an increasingly digital commerce landscape, they're not only partnering with these digital personas, but beginning to develop their own virtual ambassadors. And that's providing greater control and flexibility in brand storytelling. And as we're looking ahead, this is on our radar with, as digital twin avatar tools become more accessible, virtual worlds become more prevalent, we're really expecting to see these real life influencers adopt digital doubles or virtual identities of their own as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space.
So an example to call out here is coming from the virtual influencer Ayai and the partnership they have right now with Porsche. And so as a digital persona in China, Ayai and the creators behind it, iMaker, have partnered with Porsche to really create an exciting immersive brand experience for Porsche's future customers. And so what drove all of this and drove the partnership between the two of them, the team behind Porsche cited that the average age of consumers for them in China is 35, and they're really focused on understanding how consumers are going to expect to interact with brands today, but also in the near future. So they're really dialing into how can their brand really show up in these spaces, and not only partner with these digital influencers, but maybe also tailor their own. To kind of just like wrap this trend up too. So for some takeaways here, we're thinking about how influencers are evolving beyond current platforms and appearing within these metaverse spaces, right? How can they form deeper engagement with audiences through chat, moderation at live events, consultations, interactive engagements? These are all places where these digital personas or avatars could show up. And so how is your brand preparing to meet consumers within these increasingly virtual, immersive, explorable environments? And then also, what does a brand virtual ambassador or influencer look like for you?
Very interesting.
The second trend we have in here with digital worlds and influencing, we're looking at how consumers are acting as virtual brand ambassadors themselves. And so as metaverses, all of its variations unfold, brands and retailers are experimenting with how best to show up within these virtual worlds. And with digital identity taking on greater importance, customizable avatars, virtual personas really represent an opportunity for consumers to co-create and partner with brands as they create their own branded avatars, these virtual products, as well as metaverse-based experiences. And so this is allowing consumers to create not only a branded avatar, it's empowering consumers to share an authentic brand experience with their followers and to function really as this quasi-member of a brand's marketing team through organic social sharing. All again within these virtual worlds. And so innovative approaches to avatar design, clothing, accessorizing is really going to allow these virtual brand ambassadors to cross that digital physical divide to produce really lasting in-product person experiences as well as virtual ones. And so here, a great example of how we're seeing this kind of take shape today comes from Adidas, who recently collaborated with Ready Player Me to launch what they're calling Oz World. And this is a metaverse-based experience that allows consumers to create their own avatar. These avatars are AI generated, and they're based on each consumer's response to a series of questions. Questions are related to their individual personality and preferences. It's across, music, fashion, and then it matches their avatar with a virtual product based on their answers and outfits them in virtual Adidas gear. And so the cool crossover point here is that while you can build your own custom avatar, this launch also coincides with a physical collection that features these different products in the real world as well. So just quick takeaway here to think about is really thinking about how you're going to help influencers develop on new content platforms, develop new content formats, and really challenge that search to web page practice by helping influential personalities leverage anything from, their avatar persona across these different social platforms that are taking shape, and how to help them have greater impact on, connecting with consumers and building those relationships, but in virtual worlds.
So that's been a very interesting section, a very progressive section. Let's move on and talk about how influencers, creators are actually helping develop new business models and new products in partnership.
Yeah, so first up, we have what we're calling matching creators and brands. For brands and retailers interested in building either ongoing or even more in-depth relationships with the creators that they partner with, rather than this kind of one-off campaign mindset, there's definitely a growing number of tools and platform services that have been designed specifically to find, manage, and then integrate influencers into existing marketing teams and overall brand vision. And so these platforms are also permitting influencers the necessary creative freedom, right, to create that compelling content versus that more manufactured content. And it's simultaneously, these platforms are allowing brands to plan, track, manage these campaigns, all in line with their targeted goal and success metrics. And so a great example of how we're seeing this in the marketplace right now comes from Aspire. And so this is an influencer marketing platform which has what they call a reverse creator marketplace that permits creators to actually choose which brands and campaigns they want to work on. While this service is free for creators, brands can receive proposals from creators, experts, other influencers across a range of channels. Brands can also access creator reviews, past engagement metrics, and collaboration history for anyone who submits a proposal to them. And so an example of someone using this platform, we're looking at Ruggable, and using Aspire to help, they sourced 400 plus brand evangelists to help build and grow their own community. And then a quick metric here, in less than 6 months, Ruggable went from, working with 10 influencers a week to working with on average 45. So they were really able to successfully build out that community of influencers with the help of Aspire.
Very interesting platform.
Yeah, and just to kind of provide a few key takeaways here. We're looking now at like investing in matchmaking, longer term relationships, building rather than just one-off campaigns. And here we're really focusing on how you can create a sustainable creator model, right? Building on that, creating a set of standards for influencers, providing that framework that offers two-way visibility into the professionalism of the influencer partners and the corporation itself. And then last is just run a knowledge sharing program, share updates on algorithm changes, ensure that influencers and their brand partners are really able to build campaigns on equal footing and with equal knowledge.
So we have another strategy within the report called creative stewardship. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so last trend for today, last strategy for today is creative stewardship. And here we're looking at how the experience economy is evolving really quickly. It's moved from a linear approach to content creation where content is carefully manufactured by the brand alone or siloed, and then influencers simply push that out. And now it's really becoming something where it's collaborative. Creators are being integrated into that creative process, and they're being positioned as key decision makers as well. And so we're looking at how the new influencer ecosystem supports creators' work through financing, education, and also just equitable pay and credit for their insights and their communities, right? And so an example of here we want to call out is coming from Reddit, who has recently created a community fund, a creative community fund. And it's inviting those in its communities to submit their own ideas for projects, events, contests, and more. And so leading up to the launch of the official program, there was an experimental period where projects that were submitted included everything from digital history conferences, community designed musical billboards to be featured in Times Square. There was a photography competition, and then even comic created competitions. So they're really looking to help their communities not only build on their ideas and create their own content, but then also share that amongst their own followers as well. And so just some quick takeaways here when you're thinking about how you can act as a creator steward. Reconsider your criteria for influencers for your business. Inclusivity is really defining this next iteration of the influencer economy, and platforms and community building is really becoming more democratized. Anyone with an audience can participate as an influencer today. Next thing is that we find to be really important here to make this happen is to invite influencers to be part of that creative development process. Offering their co-creation, their feedback, and really having a say from the start. And then also just reworking partnership agreements to ramp up that influencer engagement, ensuring that that onboarding process for new influencers is fair, it's effective, especially as this next generation will have never engaged in that more commercial relationship with partners, and it's going to feel very foreign to them. So just being a good brand partner here as well.
Great. So it's interesting as we kind of wrap this up. We asked the question like, where next? And I think when we did the survey, there does seem to be a desire for audiences to have a kind of closer relationship with the creators. And often this is through kind of platforms that we already use every day. So we talk about messaging and chat. They'd love to be able to like communicate and ping their influencers. They would love to have the creators respond to comments and questions that they might leave, and even email and have an email exchange between the consumers, between the audience and the influencers. And so I think brands and retailers could think about how they could leverage and help influencers use those conversation-led platforms to create more kind of personalized experiences. So Lauren, I thought at the end of this session, we should actually talk to Jessica Quillen, who was the lead researcher behind this report. Hey, Jessica, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
How did you think the report finally turned out?
I actually thought it came out really well. It was absolutely fascinating to put together.
Well, you know, I'd love to ask you, both as the researcher who is like thinking about and studying what's going on out there, but also as an influencer yourself. And I'm going to ask you, when it comes to kind of brands and retailers looking for an influencer partner, what kind of factors should they evaluate? What things should they, aspects or markers should they use to, as a criteria to select an influencer?
I would say these days the criteria for influencers extend way beyond sort of the original criteria of, you know, follower counts and even, you know, kind of market coverage and engagement and all of that. I think these days it's much more about sort of the human touch. I think, you know, influencers who have a particularly strong following within a niche market, you know, nano influencers or may have under 1,000 followers, you know, depending on sort of, you know, the segmentation you're looking at for particular kinds of campaigns. You know, I think looking at influencers and how they interact with their followers, you know, so I think there's a sort of a battery of criteria that, you know, brands can use to look for influencers. You know, I also think, you know, starting small for smaller campaigns is good. You know, the thing with, you know, bigger influencers these days, it's sort of, they cross the line into brands themselves, and it can become difficult for, you know, big retailers to even partner with them on the level they want to really get that kind of personalization, I think, messaging across. So
that's great. And then, but on the other side, what should an influencer or creator, what should they look for in terms of a brand partner?
Honestly, you know, as an influencer myself, being a completely crazy obsessed marathoner, the biggest criteria I would say is to do your homework. You know, find brands that you're truly passionate about, that you actually, you know, engage with on a personal basis, you know, kind of day to day, and you know, but also consider brands that you may not always work with if, you know, you really believe in their values and, you know, kind of it's a campaign that you think will really kind of be an extension of your personal brand. I mean, I think so many influencers or people even on social who may not think of themselves as influencers don't realize how much impact they have in their own community. And, you know, brands may reach out because they have a similar interest. So I think influencers can, you know, consider brands that, you know, may have, you know, a common interest or, you know, kind of be, you know, promoting something that they're very passionate about. So,
yeah. And then in terms of new content, you know, there's a whole bunch of different platforms, content formats. How can brands and retailers support influencers kind of develop new ideas, new content on those platforms?
you know, I would say both as someone with a background in brand marketing, I think it's a juxtaposition between having a creator-led strategy and really kind of putting the power of content in the hands of creators, as well as sort of finding a way to really involve the influencers as sort of a part of your brand marketing strategy. So not only they get the why behind the campaign that you're doing, but also you give them the freedom to, you know, use the tools and the platforms, you know, the way that they feel comfortable with and, you know, really resonates with their audiences. Because, you know, the whole point of tapping into influencers rather than, you know, kind of putting out your own marketing campaigns is to really let them drive the creative in a very authentic, original way.
Thanks so much for the work researching the report. It's turned out to be a great addition to our library.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Well, thanks, Jessica, for those final points. I want to thank everybody for contributing today, the researchers, the experts. I want to thank everybody who was taking part in the chat and adding to the chat and asking questions. And thank you so much for you all being part of this as well. If you'd like content like this, check out our library at psfk.com/reports. If you like ideas like this, subscribe to our newsletters. We send 2 newsletters out each week, one about retail innovation, one more about CX innovation. And then I hope to see you at another one of our webinars. Thanks for being part of this. This is Piers Fawkes, PSFK.